We're live.
There's a 10-second delay or something.
Says we're live.
Hello and welcome. And I am so pleased that so many of you have signed up, and I'm super excited. And I've got my champagne ready for later. As many of you know, I'm Dr. Denise Taylor, and I'm joined by the fabulous Sarah Taylor Phillips, who encouraged me to have an online launch party. So over to you, Sarah.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, Denise, I just wanted to say congratulations. Well done. It's launch day at last. So absolutely fantastic. And everybody, Denise is one of my female heroes. I've been following her for a long, long time. She wrote one of my Bible books, which I use in my work with 50-year career, called You're Hired, Find Work at 50 Plus. So that's how I know Denise. And she's quite local to me as well. And I'm so excited to be here for the launch of her new book, Rethinking Retirement for Positive Aging. And how timely is this at the moment? So what I wanted to do was, ask Denise some questions about her book. So Denise, as I said, congratulations, well done. First of all, I just wanted to ask you, what inspired you to write this brilliant and very timely book?
Thanks for asking that one. I mean, well, the book came out of the research, and I've been involved with things to do with retirement going back, well, nearly 40 years. I was running pre-retirement seminars at 27. So I've always been interested in how people go from full-on work to retirement and what makes a difference. And I've always wanted to do a doctorate, and I wanted to do one by the time I was 50. I wanted to do one a bit later on, but it was never the right time, and I never had the right subject matter. And then I came across the professional doctorate, which is for people who want to study at doctoral level, but they wanted to make it more practical rather than to be an academic. So I did the research, which was hard going, and then it was time to write it up. And I was going to do an academic article. I'd got no idea you had to actually pay to get published, unless you work in a university. And I thought, well, I've already written 7 books. I might as well write another one. And so that's why I wrote the book. And it's about sharing my knowledge and all this sort of real evidence-based stuff with a wider audience.
I think that's amazing. And I think we're living twice as long as we used to. So if we were born in the 1900s, we'd be living until we were 40 or 50. Now we're living till we're 80 or 90. So there's this whole kind of retirement piece, these whole extra years we've been given, extra decades we've been given, and what are we going to do with them? So so that's why your book's so timely at the moment, I think. And what about the name then? I mean, I don't know if this is 2 questions or 1, but rethinking retirement for positive aging, 2 of my favorite subjects. What's behind the name for the book?
Well, the working title was 15 words long, and when you submit a proposal to a publisher, then they send it out to review, when people way too many words here. So then they changed it from rethink to rethinking retirement, and then I wanted to have about meaningful life added in as well. But then I'm really open and honest, and it was my publisher that said, but what you're writing about is really positive, and it's about the positive side of aging. So why don't we add that in? And also they said it's a good keyword, people will search for it. So there's a marketing angle, but also it's about being positive about aging and everything. And I just want to sort of do an aside. This is the first time I've ever used StreamYard. As we were talking about, I've been learning how to use it. And I know that apparently there's a delay between us talking of 10 seconds or something and it coming through. So, but it's all being recorded. So if there's any mishaps or whatever, then it will all be saved and shared later. But yeah, something else I had to learn, StreamYard.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you learned it so quickly and I'm so impressed. Honestly, yeah, well done. Well done. And I think, I think aging needs rebranding, doesn't it? And that's what you've done in this book. Aging is such a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm forever, I get frustrated about all this stuff about, anti-aging, keep looking younger for longer and everything. And it's like, you know what, but what's wrong with getting older? I mean, I think everybody listening in would have known people that haven't reached the age that we are. So why not go forward? And as I'm a psychologist, and one of the things that Carl Jung says, who's one of the psychologists that I've always read a lot of his really wordy books. But a proper development as an individual is, in midlife we change, and it's much more about giving back. And there's a reason that we live longer, and that's because this later part of life is important, rather than just trying to be. I think we can be. I'm not sure I like the word young at heart, but I think we can be sort of curious and open and enthusiastic for life, but we don't have to pretend we're still teenagers.
Exactly. There's this crystallized wisdom's the theory that I love, and it's about Ray Cattell did it, and it talks about just all the things you learn. It's cumulative, really. So I think when we're over 50, we've got sort of 3.5 walls of library books, whereas when you're in your mid-20s, you've got half a wall of library books. So we've got a lot of wisdom to draw from, haven't we? There's a lot of wisdom to draw from.
In fact, I was reading something recently, because it's like I'm always reading broadly, and about how the multi-generational workforce, and how we need to have more older people and younger people.
Absolutely.
Because you come into things with different perspectives and different knowledge, and we learn from each other. So that's not something I've been writing about, and that's not my research area. But I think it is important that we don't just think, well, we don't have young people thinking we're all old and past it, and neither do we think that they, whatever. I think it's important that we're working across generations.
I think it's really important. I call that intergenerational alchemy, and I think there's something really special about having different ages in the workforce. And I know lots of younger teams, they're actively looking for older workers, 50 plus, to come in and work with younger people, because if it's all young people, that doesn't work as well. So Denise, the question for you: retirement. You talked about retirement. We talked about that at length, actually, kind of not in this call, but in a different call. And you spelt it with a Y, retirement with a Y. Talk me through that. I absolutely love that.
Well, this is so funny, because I've got a client who's American, and I was talking about this, and he says, you realise, Denise, in his lovely American accent, that we spell tyres Tire. And I go, oh, this isn't going to work then. But we had such fun about it. Because, so the reason I started thinking about retirement, and I think this is one of the things that came to me when I was sat in the wood, where I get loads of inspiration, was you think about Formula One, and they go zooming into the pit stop, whatever, and they change the tyres because they burn out and they need faster, newer tyres. And I thought, often when we're younger, that's how our career is. It's like going ahead at full speed, let's get the next promotion. Why didn't it get that promotion? What is it that I've got to do to, raise my profile and everything? But then I started thinking about people up in Scandinavia, and they put on the ice tyres. And it's like, and then you slow down, because you're not going to go bombing around really, really fast in the winter. So there's lots of different ways, but that's why I was thinking we're moving from this focus on getting promotion and climbing to the top of an organisation to, like, you know what, this is where we are, and now it's time to change my tyres. So it might be that I want to slow down, but it could also be I no longer want to be that whatever job it happens to be. I want to do something different.
Yeah.
And we can. There's no age point that says we can't change careers any further on. But I think it's often useful to have a time of reflection and think, well, what tyres do I want to put on? So that's all the fun bit around that.
That's brilliant. And I think as well, the whole career ladder, right? Climb. But then actually 50 plus, we might want to go sideways, or, you might want to upsize your career, downsize, it depends, doesn't it? Sort of life stage, and also about leaving a legacy as well, perhaps. So there we go.
Yeah.
You talk about,
No, I was about to say, because you talked about the earlier book, Find Work at 50 plus. And it's interesting, because I've never asked, well, I suppose this latest book, I went out to get a publisher, but previously all my other books, people just came to me and said, would you write a book? So Trotman had come to me, and at that point I'd been writing quite a lot about the over 50s, and I was over 50. And could I write the book about find work at 50 plus? Because they said lots of people think they're too old. And you know, the whole thing, if you think you are,
Sure.
you're probably
Yeah.
you're probably right.
Henry Ford.
Yeah, so it's actually, I've forgotten what where I was starting off from, but it's, you know, it's the whole thing about it's not too late to change career, but it's thinking about what is it that we want to do and thinking of it in the broader sense. Money is important, but it's generally not the main thing that drives us.
I think that's right. I think, you know, seen lots of research about the over 50s and go back to work, and flex is one of the, you know, flex is one of the big things, and sort of legacy as well. So there we go. So what about, you talked about as well, I tell you, Elsa, absolutely love the young olds. Tell me about the young olds.
Yes. Oh, when I came across that term, and I wrote about, it's Bernice, I can't pronounce her second name, and I'm not going to try now, but she's a gerontologist, and she's the one that came up with this description. And what was really interesting was when I was doing my doctorate, I used to wander around with pages and, well, so many different articles around with me. I was sort of got really good at, you know, just reading the abstract and getting in and working out the age of the people they were talking about. And all these young researchers are talking about the elderly, and then you look and the people are being about 40 or 50, and it's like, okay, so that's not quite how I would describe the elderly. But then the more I was going into, we find out that some researchers talk about the young old and the old, but the young old, they have starting at about 50. And then some others would divide them into three groups. You've got the young old, the middle old, and the old olds. And how I think works really well is you've got the young old, which, I mean, if all these areas, I don't think are so much a sort of an actual, you know, this is 50 to 65, it's more a state of mind. So you're in the young old when you're ready to start embracing that as a label. So maybe it's around 60-ish, but, you know, I guess you go from midlife to young old, and there's probably a fluffy, fuzzy border between the two. And this is where I'm 66, and, you know, I don't mind telling people. And I think this is where we're living our best life. We've hopefully still got our health, our money situation's better, and there's things that we want to do, and we've got a more flexible life. So this, hopefully for me, will go on till about 75. You know, you just don't know. But there will come a time when I think I'm not the young old anymore. I can't do the travel that I used to do. I've maybe got some aches and pains. I'm now much more aware of my mortality. And then I don't want to call it the middle old. And then it's like, I'm old, and it's like, you know what, I'm old, and I'm really happy if people give me a seat on the tube or something. And then my mother is 91, is 90. And she's definitely in the old, because she's got carers that come in and look after her. And I think you reach the old when you reach a point where you can't, you can't do things for yourself. You do feel more frail. So I like the way that I have three categories for being older, because you don't lump everybody from 0 to 21 and call them the same. So why do they call us, you know, seniors or the elderly or whatever? I mean, whatever descriptions they happen to be.
That's a great thing. I think the other thing I was thinking about is, you know, in the pandemic we had the great retirement, didn't we? Everybody kind of, you know, took stock, took some time out, retired, and you know, and I think 18 months we give a lot of people, or there's some research say the sort of 18 months, 2 years, they've been traveling, they've had a couple of gap years, they've built the extension, and like now they want to get back into the, you know, into roles or voluntary work or meaningful work. And I think so that whole, you know, retirement's not all it's cracked up to be. I think when we think of retirement, the concept is about how much money, but the actual, you know, being retired, that's quite different, isn't it, in reality, to what we think in our heads, I think, or the fantasy of retirement.
I've just noticed all the suns suddenly come out, and I'm not going to stand up and close the blinds. But that's a really interesting thing, because when I doing a professional doctorate in an occupational psychology department, it had to be linked to the workplace. So the retirement from work was like, I couldn't go later than that stage of life. And my supervisor said, well, are you going to focus on adjustment or transition? I go like, is there a difference? I didn't, I hadn't really looked into it, but the more I, going all through these academic papers, so the more you go through it, you've got the transition of retirement that can take up to 2 years.
Yeah.
And then after 2 years, you're into the adjustment phase. So that was why I decided to do adjustment to retirement. So I only focused on research that had been done for people that were 2 years on. And maybe they were still working, but they weren't classifying themselves as working as their main thing. They were doing other things as well. They were allowed to do some part-time work, for the research. So yeah, you're right. But so people, whenever I used to run my pre-retirement seminars, that were for people, 18 months coming into retirement, and they go like, well, what do I need to know any of this for? I'm just going to go to my caravan in Tenby and look after the grandchildren, go on holiday and, do all the stuff around the house.
Live happily ever after.
Yeah. But then it's like, but if every day's a weekend, the weekends lose their gloss. So what is it that you want to do? And there was something I was listening to, with the whole thing about AI taking over and nobody's going to have to work again. Well, not sure I agree with that.
That's what Elon said. Not sure about that.
Yeah, well, the tech companies might make all the money, and then I like dystopian fiction, so I could see really negative coming through. But it's a bit like the really wealthy, who turn to drug, some of them, and they turn to drugs because there's no meaning in their life, and they're trying to look for an escape. So I think we need to find meaning, and it might be we want to carry on working. But I want people to do it as a conscious choice. I don't want people working because they can't think of anything else to do. So it's like, well, I might just carry on working. It's like, I want to go back to work because this is the contribution that I can make. Or I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do it part-time, or, we've got all these options. And also, whatever choice we make, and this is what I say to my clients, is it's not forever. It's like I'm trying to get out of the sun. It's not forever.
No.
You're making a decision for now, and we can change our minds.
Absolutely. I talk about jobs for now as well. So there's the ideal job, which you might, or the ideal retirement, but then there's kind of retirement for now or job for now, and it is very much in the moment. And I think when you're in the moment, that's when you're learning which bits you do like of retirement and which bits you don't, or the job for now, which bits you do like of that work and which bits that you kind of don't. So what do you think retirement success looks like then, Denise, for people?
I know, what a question. Somebody else asked me that one, and I go, I'll have to get back to you about it, because I think it's different. And this morning I went from a swim, and I was in the sauna, and I was just saying to this chap that, I'd got this book coming out, and I was doing this online thing today about rethinking retirement, and he was the view that why would anybody be interested in that? He says, I've got my allotment, and I go rowing. He says, come rowing with me if you want something to do. So I didn't know if that was a chat up line, and who knows. but it was like, but he's happy with his retirement, and somebody else might be very happy, spending lots of time with their grandchildren, really focused on family things. But a lot of the people that I work with, they want more. They have been certainly high achievers. And, once they've done all the household things, it's, well, how can I make a difference? And sometimes it is through getting involved with the community or a voluntary organisation, something like that. And sometimes it's, it's going back to study. I studied, in my 60s. And for other people, they might want to do that. They want to write a book. There's no one way about this is what a successful retirement is. But one of the activities I get people to do in the book is to imagine themselves 25 years ahead. And, so, for me, that'd be 91. So then I'm like my mother. And, if you're at that point in the future, it's like you look back and you think, am I happy with how life has been? Am I, it might not have gone well, but am I happy with stuff? And I think that is, then that means success. You know what? I'm just going to take myself off camera and shut the blind.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's so interesting. The other thing I was thinking about, actually, your book. I mean, because we need a kind of map for retirement, really, or knowing how to navigate it. So, strikes me that there's a lot of similarities between kind of searching for work that you love and and figuring out how you retire fabulously. And that's why your book, all of the work that you've done for all those 40 years, really plays into this, how to retire fabulously, doesn't it? Because it's kind of
Yeah.
based on the same sort of foundations, I guess. And I think that's so interesting.
Yeah, it is, because there's so much talk now about the 100-year life. There's so much talk about the second 50 and other things, about and midlife reviews. And midlife reviews seem to be sold as if it's something new, but we were doing them like 10 or 15 years ago. But I guess stuff just comes around again. But I think, yeah, whatever we've done about changing careers in our 50s and the things about self-understanding is stuff that we want to think about as we're moving into this transition. And whether we carry on working or not, this is a major transition. Probably the biggest transition that we ever have, because we're going through it in a different way. You go to school at 5. Every other 5-year-old is going at the same time, and at 18 and stuff.
Yeah.
And you're all pretty healthy at that point. Whereas we're heading into retirement at whatever age it happens to be, or we begin to think about it. But we've all got different sorts of health. We've all got wide varieties of money in the bank. We've got different personal circumstances. There's just so many different ways that it can go. And some people have got, they've won the lottery, sort of, with the money and the health and everything.
Yeah.
Other people haven't. And often it's to no fault of their own. And I'm just, when I was writing the book, and whenever I talk about this subject on radio shows and things, it's like, I'm not just talking to the middle classes who are comfortably off, because if I'd been working in a job which is very physically demanding, I might be looking forward to my retirement. I think, what, I've now earned a time to put my feet up, and I don't actually want to do very much. Whereas, for those of us who are in more office type jobs, as long as our brains are going, we can just carry on.
You're right. I think there's a big piece around identity as well. So if your identity is wrapped up in your work, and oh my goodness, when I was 35, mine absolutely, my work was who I was. And I think when that identity comes away from you, that is it's a huge transition. And I think I've experienced that a number of times because of various things, businesses, beginning and ending, and roles beginning and ending. But I think if you haven't experienced that, if you've been working all the way through and then you stop, that's a huge thing, isn't it, to kind of acknowledge and face, really.
There's a psychological term called mattering, which is another one that I came across through the research. And it's like, do I matter without my job? Because we get our identity from our work. I mean, some people get their identity from family roles.
Sure.
But if you've been known as, the person with a successful career, it is, do I matter? And that can take quite a bit of coming to terms with, thinking about your new identity. And nobody can rush you through it, because I think that's the other thing to think about is there's no, it's a bit like, I suppose, a divorce or something, or dealing with a bereavement. Nobody can tell you how long it's going to take to come out the other side, because we're all different, and we need to allow ourselves time and be kind to ourselves and to think about, this is part of me moving forward, and I want to do it well, because otherwise you rush through it and you haven't properly addressed anything, and then something else comes along and you just go back into something.
I think you're right. And I think the other thing that you spoke about was kind of retirement off a cliff. What is this work? So stressful, so full on, busy, and then nothing. For me, that transition doesn't, we should step more into that transition, or just make it more gentle, or kind of phase down how we retire, rather than this off a cliff.
And I think it's what organizations can do, is to have more flexible working, to have, to take their employees and let them gradually lower the number of hours that they do, and support, the upcoming managers or whatever that's taken over from them, and to take on more of a mentoring role. I think that's a really useful way about how we're stepping up to a different stage of life, where we're not getting jealous that other people have got the promotion, but we can sort of say, let's just talk through about how you can do it better. I think things like that is useful.
Oh my goodness, I think that's absolutely right. And I think, say, somebody who's stepping up their career or wants to get back into their work, and then somebody who's phasing down slightly, there's a job share right there, or there's a mentor, and also that helps with the intergenerational piece as well. So the younger and older workers, perhaps working together. So I think that's that's something that organisations need to look at very closely. And I know it's a UK thing. In other countries they do retire in a more phased way anyway. I think in the Netherlands they 5 days, 4 days, 3, each year they kind of come down a day. So there we go.
I didn't realise, but comments are appearing. I
can't see those. You're multitasking. I'm not.
I was just looking on my phone because I thought that's what we'd have to do. So at some point we'll make a comment on, or should we just take a pause now and see what
we can do that. We can do that, definitely.
It's like Ian is there.
Ian is.
Pardon?
I said I don't even know if I'll be able to see them, but I'll have a try.
Well, we've got the space down the right hand side that says comments. We are learning it. And there's somebody called Ian who I went to live in London just before my 17th birthday, and he was at university, and we became great friends following a band. And it's just amazing that this is like 50 years on, nearly, since I first met him. Colette has said she'll look at the great hire at 50 and positive aging. And so lots of people are congratulating me, and I'm not going to be like reading all those out. Eloise is saying I'm a year behind you in the professional doctorate journey. John Lees, who wrote How to Find a Job You Love, he's somebody that I've always read his books and followed his work. And the book that you picked up before, Find Work at 50 Plus, he wrote the intro for that one.
I saw that, yeah.
And then he wrote when I asked him about an endorsement for this book, he said, well, would you like me to write the intro? So there's that as well. Right. Ian's put quite a long thing that I'm not going to read there, and Sheila has mentioned something about crystallized wisdom. So all these comments, comments that are there, I'm so glad I've got them, and I'll go back and look at them later.
Good. And I did get to see them, everybody. They've gone now, but I did get to glance. So tick on the tech front.
Yeah.
So what else did I want to ask? Hold on a second. What do you think? Now, I couldn't answer this because I think it's everywhere, all of the book. But what do you think? Which part of the book do you think readers will get most value from?
What a question. Dear. What a question.
All of it.
I tell you,
the answer.
Yeah, you've got to read the whole lot. The thing is, how I like to write is in short sections. It's like, this is what we're going to cover. This is what we did, and I end each chapter with before you move on.
Yeah.
And I've put lots of activities. The first thing I'd encourage people to do is do the activities because that's all to help you understand it more. And I can't even remember which chapter it is now, but it's one of the early ones, which is about, I think it's chapter 3, which is about taking stock and just sort of seeing how you are against, work and health and relationships and stuff. So that's a really interesting one to do. But I also like the chapter about personality. Who are you? And that is such a big question to address.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Sarah was the first person I gave a book to. And it's
yes, I was.
Even my partner was saying, "Can I have a copy?" I go like, "No, it's not on sale yet. We can wait." But
I got one. I was so excited. I honestly, I read it. I went to London last week and I read it cover to cover on the train. Yes, cover to cover on the train. Absolutely love it. And the exercises, they're just absolute game changers because this. I don't know. Until you do those exercises, you just don't realise these things about you, and it just changes. Yeah, it changes everything. So it's brilliant.
Yeah, but the section on personality, I'm a psychologist, and I was looking deep into personality theory, and but that was the beauty of studying in my 60s. It's like when I did my first degree, it was like, what's the minimum I can get away with? Whereas this time it's like, what's an interesting avenue to explore?
Wow.
And I looked into the meaning of meaning for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks, I just read philosophy about the meaning of what's the meaning of meaning? And I was getting myself really wrapped up in it. And honest to God, in my thesis, it was like 2.5 lines. But I was glad I had the time to do that. So looking now at personality, it's like, but how have we changed? And in what ways do we want to change? And there's an interesting thing that I found out about was that a personality that suits you for work, like being highly ambitious and a bit sort of highly assertive, let's say, with other people, it's not actually going to be the best personality as we retire. But you said earlier about people, but we're all different. So some people will, the whole, the fixed and growth mindset. So some people, it's like, well, I'm too old to learn anything new, and it's my way or the highway and all that sort of thing. And as with learning StreamYard, and as with, just anything else that we're learning to do, it's about going forward with a growth mindset and thinking, you know what, I can change. I am not the person that I was at 30, 40, 50 or whatever. And what's the person like that I want to be at like 90? I don't want to be a grumpy old woman. I want to be I'm aiming to be this wise elder that's kind and compassionate, never gets frustrated or worked
You're
up.
wise elder already. You're that already, Denise. You've got there. You're there. You're there. That's yes. Okay.
And, my husband's really grumpy at the moment. How can I help him? Oh dear. Well, that's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Like, first of all, it's really hard to help your partner, because when my son wanted career coaching, I paid for him to see someone else. It's like, he needs to be somebody else. But I think, well, Colette, get him to buy my book. But I think
buy the book. It might have lost identity, because I think males sometimes, if they are wrapped up in that identity and then they're transitioning, then probably not as used to it perhaps as some of us are. That's what I find with some of the career coaching that I do.
Yeah, because I think we can be worried about retirement because it's the great unknown. So it's about getting stories of people that have transitioned successfully. So that might be useful. And I'd like to start gathering gathering stories of people who have had success. I mean, there's people in my book. So some of the stories in the chapter 3 section 3 might be helpful.
That's really interesting. I think entrepreneurial journey as well. There's a lot of evidence that a lot of over 50s are starting their own business. And again, you bring all that wisdom, that wisdom to the table if you're doing something that's really meaningful to you. So I know a lot of sort of 60-year-old entrepreneurs who, did dream of drinking that gin and tonic, and being by this, they're south of France a lot and actually could easily afford that lifestyle. But they're working on this business that they love, doing really different things. And that's so exciting. And also I think it's so inspiring for the rest of us, because there is that whole, I'm 50 now, what shall I do? And you're right, the kind of conversations or the narrative around when are you going to retire? And, there's all of that going on. But, oh, my goodness, 50, we've got another 20 years to work at least. There's a 50, 60-year career now. So that kind of retiring at 50 or that narrative or 60, or it's kind of old-fashioned, isn't it, these days?
Because actually that when people say, so when are you going to retire? It's a bit like when they say to 20-year-olds, or 17-year-olds, what are you going to do when you leave school, university? I don't know. It's like, so let's just think about a really good answer to a question. So when are you going to retire? And it's like, well, it depends what you think about retiring. If you think retiring is when I'm going to sit there watching daytime TV with my pipe and slippers, never. But if you think retiring is more about having a flexible and fulfilling life where I can focus on what I really want to do rather than what my employer wants me to do, I'm just getting ready for that. So that's, because I do think we need to rebrand retirement.
We do.
And
we definitely do.
People have talked about preferment, refinement, and all these and perennials. And well, they're all quite interesting concepts. But then your employer talks about retirement, your financial people talk about retirement. So yeah, I think that's what I want to do, is to rebrand retirement. It's not you're getting into, God's waiting room. It's like this flexible, meaningful time of life.
It's true. It's almost coming into our prime in a way, isn't it? I think so. Yeah, and I think Viva, the midlife MOTs, they were talking about and because people were saying, "Oh my God, is this about retirement?" And they were saying, "No, it's about anti-retirement. It's about working longer. It's about choosing kind of what you do." And I love those conversations you've had with me about retirement and the different words, that it's called. But actually, when we talk about retirement, we all know what it means, don't we? So I think it's a good word from that point of view, but I think it does need rebranding for sure. And I think the other thing I think is, the whole education, work, retire, I think that model's broken. I think we're going to have lifelong learning. I think we're going to be in and out of work, no such thing as jobs for life. So I think it has changed from that point of view, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I do think, as you know, I'm 66, and because I worked for about 20 years with Royal Mail, I have got an index-linked pension. Yeah. And they don't even call index-linked anymore. Anyway, defined benefits, I think. But people nowadays, when they're putting, they're 5% away and their employers are putting 3% away or whatever but they're not going to be, many people are not going to have this huge pension to retire with. But then if people stop thinking about, well, I can never retire because I'll never have enough money, and change it to, but I can work 3 days a week. If I work 20 hours a week, say, then that'll give me enough money to add on to my state pension and anything else that I happen to have. But it still gives me the flexibility to do whatever it is that makes you feel fulfilled.
Absolutely. And I think work does give you connection. That's what people missed about not working, or these people who retired, they miss the connection, the social interaction, getting paid. It's nice to be paid. And also it's nice to be working, because guess what? You get positive feedback. I don't get much positive feedback in this house. My children don't say, "Oh, you've done such a great job today. Well done." There's none of that. So, work's good. It's good. If you're doing the right role, if you're doing a role you don't like, or you're working too hard, or then it's not good, or you've done something that you didn't want to be doing all these years, then yes, of course you want to stop. But you're a good example of somebody who loves what you do. And
because it's interesting, isn't it? Because I became self-employed around 40, and I did a lot of consultancy. I mean, huge amount of very lucrative consultancy. And then I focused more on my private clients. But some people listening will know that I left my marriage split up at 60 and a half, and that led on to sort of these major changes and everything. But I suddenly realized the life I had wasn't actually the life I need going forward. So different things were important to me. There's the whole thing about nature is way more important to me now, and it's needing less money than I used to have. Because I'm more satisfied and I'm not looking to buy my way out of things. And one of my clients was saying about the amount of money he was spending on suits and travel and entertainment and all the stuff, all the holidays he was going on to soothe himself because he hated his job, but it was like really, really well paid. So I think often when we're thinking about retirement and how it's going to be and will I have enough money, but we're rethinking what it is that we need and thinking about the lifestyle that suits us. And it might be that somebody wants to go off to Africa and, and go and do VSO perhaps, which is something that I've always considered, but maybe there's still time for that.
I'm sure there is. And can I ask a question as well? Your doctorate, how long did it take kind of from start to finish? Was it 1 year, 2? How?
Yeah. So if I was going to do a PhD, and I was in talks with a couple of universities, they were really happy for me to do a PhD, but that was going to be 5 years part-time.
Okay.
I had a really good conversation. I've forgotten his name now, but from down in Swansea. He's quite well known in the aging area. And he was saying, "But Denise, do you want to be an academic?" And I go like, "No." And he was saying, "Well, don't do a PhD." And there's a professional doctorate. So like your chiropractor and your clinical psychologist and people like that, they all do, there was a role model of a professional doctorate. So it's the same standard, but they take account of your work experience. I've already got an MSc, already a chartered psychologist, and took account of all of that.
Yeah.
So the quickest you can do it is 2 years. Although when I came to the end, my university couldn't believe that anybody could do it in less than 3 years. So my supervisors were rushing around trying to get them to rethink everything. So it was 2 years, but I started the October before lockdown. And I wrote somewhere about how I missed my first cohort group because I was off in Nepal traveling. And I had 2 sessions with my cohort, and then it was lockdown. And then I didn't get any client work. So in a way, that was good because I've got all this time to study. But I mean, I'm studying in a pandemic, and there was a lot of uncertainty and worry and everything that's going on. So you can do a professional doctorate in 2 years if you've got the right work experience, and studies, academic qualifications and stuff. But it was hard going, and 2 of us managed it in 2 years, and I think another 2 were just a couple of months behind us. But in my cohort, 3 haven't finished yet, but they've got demanding jobs. So I was lucky I was able to prioritize.
Excellent. And I just wondered, are there any more questions in the group? Has anybody got any questions?
Thanks for the reminder, because Dale, who, hi Dale, she's, well, I'm going to read out what she says. There's psychosocial losses like social network, daily structure, opportunities for growth and development when a career ends. And it's important to plan to replace these, fulfilling retirement age and experience. So thanks for that reminder, Dale. And I think I do cover that in the book. It's trying to say everything in a session like this. But we do have the structure, don't you? Because you get up, you have your breakfast, you go to work, you work out when you're going to do everything else. And if there's no time, if there's no schedule, then everything, you've got unlimited time to do things, and sometimes nothing gets done. And the other thing I think about relationships is a lot of people I know, their friends are pretty much all the people that they work with, which is great. They've got great social life where they work. But then when you stop working, it's like you think you're going to carry on seeing everybody, but will you? And so it's useful to get friendships and relationships beyond the workplace. And women tend to be better at that than men, but not everybody. But I think it's useful to start joining clubs and societies and get involved with the community leading up to retirement. I'm always reminded of somebody I work with who said to me, when I retire, I'm going to do crown bowling. It's like, have you ever done it? It's like, nope. But when I retire, I'm going to do crown bowling. And it was like, and he wasn't interested in anything else. I mean, we were working on other things as well. But anyway, he retired. 3 months later, he contacted me and he goes, I don't like bowling. And but you could have tried that out before. I didn't say that to him. You could have tried it out beforehand. But it's worth trying out some different things. And also I think that helps, because if somebody says, well, I haven't got any time, my life's too busy, I haven't got any time. But I think it's quite nice to start making some time as we approach retirement.
I think that's I think that's so true. And I think with flex as well. So I'm very into mountain biking, but some of the people I've met, the women I've met in this sort of women's mountain bike are just extraordinary. They're so inspirational. They're doing all these amazing things. Some of them have retired and they're doing other things. To be in that group, it's just a great place to be, to see what other people are doing, and just people, it's a good way to go and fill time if you're working flexibly. And some people are doing that a lot of the time. Wow, enjoy. That's something to look forward to in the future.
And maybe, obviously there's people that have come before us, but we are the people that can be role modeling to younger people about this is what later life's like, because they might have very, I do improv comedy, and I'm the oldest by far, and we can, well, not by far, but there's a lot. They were really, really young, and I just think it's important for them. I think sometimes they just think I am a bit old and past it. you know, because they're 17 and that's their view of the world. But I think it's worth thinking that, you know, you can take up something new in your 60s.
You can.
And maybe you're slower at picking up some of the things
Yeah.
and don't always get all the cultural references. But I think, you know, it is useful to try different things and with different age groups.
It is. And
Just
the other, I mentioned crystallized wisdom earlier, actually, and it increases and increases. So fluid intelligence kind of, you know, gets a bit slower, 40s and 50s, but crystallized wisdom just keeps going and going and going into your 80s.
Yeah.
So you can learn all these things. Absolutely, you can.
Yeah. I wrote an article about that because, you know, the Rethink Retirement newsletter that I really wanted to change to Rethinking Retirement, and then LinkedIn are going like, don't rebrand because people won't know who you are. And I'm thinking it's only an extra 3 letters, but never mind. But it's coming up. I think it's on the 16th of November is when I wrote my first Rethink Retirement newsletter. So it's nearly 2 years I've been writing that. Wow. And that was done in the beginning just to share my knowledge, so that when I went for my Viva and they said, how are you sharing your knowledge? I said, I'm on LinkedIn. I've got my newsletter going. But I wrote about crystallized intelligence. Yeah, and I remember doing a little video down my wood talking about that as well. So, yeah, actually, that just reminds me, I've written 95 articles, I think. And those could probably form another book if I put them into groups. Maybe that's my next book.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
So let's just see. So Dale's just said about recreational leisure, including sport, can help to replace or extend social networks. Yeah. And then so Ian, my dear old friend from such a long time ago, it's disappeared.
Oh, I've got it. I can see it on the screen.
Here we go. Ian, I hope this is okay sharing this. I didn't even know I could do this. Yeah, so and actually I'm going to take that. Oh, I don't know if it's just me. I've done something different. Anyway, I'm going to take that off because I'm not sure if he wanted me to share.
Very well done with that, sharing it.
I had no idea that we could do this sort of stuff. This is just StreamYard. It's like, so pleased about that.
And where else is it streaming? It's on LinkedIn. Is it anywhere else?
Yes, it's on LinkedIn, it's on Facebook, and it's on YouTube.
Brilliant. Well done.
So I think next time I do one of these, I will just ask people if they're actually, you know what? I'm sure if people have commented, other people can see them. So let's just have here, living longer, giving back, very much resonated my experience. Gradually retiring from full-time work for 15 years before I hit official retirement. And these non-day job activities take up more than any full-time ever did. Should have turned it into a PhD sooner. So maybe he is. You know, I really must have a offline conversation with him.
Absolutely.
He was like so important meeting him all those many years ago. But I think we are, as we're aging, thinking about, you know, what is it that I can do, and being open to like a whole range of things so that we make the retirement the one we want. And clearly that's why I wrote the book, to be I mean, that's the hardback copy. Can't imagine anybody spent £130 on it, but they did send me 2. The paperback is fine, but thank you. But you know, we've got all these exercises and activities in there just to take people through. And I would love, maybe this is something that I need to do, is to get more involvement with organisations about, you know, you can't just do lip service and have a 3-hour seminar and reckon that that's covered your employees for preparing to retirement. It's around, and when I worked for Royal Mail, they were really good at this. Yeah. It's about thinking about, you know, well, how can we help people? And a lot of it is about, you know, learning about yourself. I don't know if, hopefully people have pre-ordered, the books have arrived today, but maybe they're going to come at like 10 o'clock tonight. But one of the things I write about in the book is having a reflection buddy. And a reflection buddy is somebody that you can, you know, share ideas with. You know, that's beyond, you know, your partner or your best friend, somebody different who's going through the same things with you. And I think I like the idea about people journaling, and I like the idea about people having a reflection buddy, just because it helps you to integrate and understand everything more.
I think, yeah, I think having somebody to talk to, you know, that buddy is really, really important, because it's difficult to have these conversations at home, and everybody's got their preconceived ideas, haven't they? So yes. And I think as well, the other thing I was just thinking about, just as an add-on, but you know, I live near Bristol, and there's a big kind of startup scene there, and again, there's lots of young, you know, there's lots of people starting up these businesses, and oh my goodness, you know, go and give some wisdom along to some of those businesses, or you know, some of those young people who are kind of stepping off that, you know, their start a business cliff. There's a lot of roles there, you know, that are needed, and where you can really add so much value and help, and that's a great purposeful way to spend your 50s, 60s and 70s and beyond.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, because, you know, I think time in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, I mean, you know, there's people that are still doing amazing things, you know, well into their 90s and beyond.
Absolutely.
And let's hope that we're joining them, you know. But I think, you know, and this book is one, I always said I was going to write 3 books. So there was this book, and then the next bit is more about becoming a wise elder, that ties in with more of the nature-based retreats that I'm involved with. And then the final book, it hasn't quite got a working title, but it's and I'm going through some stuff with my mum just to get some ideas about it. But it's about, you know, making your peace. I think it's that. It's making your peace at the end of life, and realizing that, you know, life might not have gone perfect, but it, you know, you're content and you've made your peace with the people in your life. Because lots of people now, they're, you know, they're not having great relationships with others. There's an awful lot of people I know who are estrangements from other people. So we've got that, and it's like, one of the things I do with my vision, when I'm doing my vision quest, is we do a death lodge, which is about making your peace with people that might not even still be alive. I can maybe do something very different, talk about that one. But I think that's my series of 3 books that I always had planned, but there might be other ones that get dropped in between.
There we go. Well, this one, you know, this one, as I say, what great timing. We know Viva, everybody's looking at the over 50s, the government are looking at the over 50s, you know, and also actually from an economic point of view, you know, keeping the market some of the time, or keep working for some of that time, because it will do our GDP good. And you know, we're in a cost of living crisis. It's, you know, it's good to, but make sure it's something you love and something you want to do. You know,
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and read this book, because there's all sorts of ways of working and all sorts of things to do. So
yeah. And as people probably know, because I have been saying quite a bit about it, I wanted to add some bonuses in, and I love writing quizzes. So there's a couple of quizzes about what sort of active ager, or what sort of ager are you? I can't even quite remember what it is.
I really like that. Tell me about the different ages.
Oh no, don't tell me. I'd have to go and look online and find out. It was around. I was on a webinar about honest to God, it was just the antithesis of me, because it was about marketing to older people, and it's like you need to segment them so that, you know,
careful, I'm a marketer, brand marketer here.
It was, you know, and so some people were really into like spiritual stuff, and others into holidays and whatever. So it was a little quiz to work out, you know, which is your persona. But also, but what I thought was quite good about it was, well, I never thought about this thing about me being, you know, Gertie Gardner, or, you know, Susan Silversmith, or whatever it happens to be. I haven't looked at it. Well, I have looked at it recently, but I've just like, it's not clear in my head. So I've got that quiz. I've got another quiz about friendship, because I did some work with the Oddfellows Friendly Society about friendships, and that got me thinking about the importance of friendship. I mean, really, really the importance of friends to successful aging. So I've got those 2. I've got a gratitude journal for people to complete, because I think it's really important that, especially if other people aren't saying any nice things to us, that we think about what we're grateful for. I've got the main exercises in the books. It's not everything, because some of them you can just write up, but any that are like charts that you have to fill in, I've put all those into a document so you don't have to use your book. And I am going to be doing a webinar. I haven't set the date yet. I wanted to just check out that this was going okay, about legacy, because I think what we focus on when people do your wills, it's all about what money am I going to leave. But I think it's the impact that we have on the world as well, the non-financial legacy. And I think that would be a really nice thing. And anybody who buys the book up until a week on Friday gets free access to that. And I think that might be something really valuable, and it will be done like this, so it'll be recorded. So if people can't make it live, they can listen to it again. So I wanted to put a few bonuses together because I think it's quite nice just to encourage people. But I don't want this book to be a book that people just buy now and then like nobody ever buys it again. You know, because I think this book, the book has got longevity. I think because I think it's something that we all need to focus on, and it's based on my academic research. I mean, I don't think there's any other, because I looked at what else was out there. I don't think any other book is based on this level of academic stuff.
I think it's the academic stuff, but it's also all of those years career coaching that you do. You know, it's your business, isn't it? It's what you've been immersed in. You know, you had your corporate career, and then you've been working with clients and running your own business and doing this stuff for a long time. So
yeah, I'm just going to show you what I can do. It's like, ta-da! I learned to do that. I learned to do that today. Sorry, have I interrupted you?
No, not at all. I'm so impressed that you can do all these things. I've used StreamYard, I don't know, but well done.
Yeah, because I know we're coming to the end of our time, and anybody who's bought the book, thank you so much. Anybody who's written a book knows that you don't make much money off the sale of a book, but what's more important to me is just getting the word out there, getting the message out there, helping people to have a retirement that suits them and works with the sort of person that they are. So if you go to that page, there's a Google form and you can fill it in, and I will then personally send you all the things that you need. And if you do buy my book and like my book, I would love you to write a review on Amazon. And go to an independent bookstore if there is one. I'd sort of much prefer you do. But when anybody wants to buy a book, they always look on Amazon for the reviews. So I'd like to get those. So thank you in advance for that. And thank you for listening. And thank you, Sarah.
Well, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I feel very privileged to be here, and congratulations. So when are you going to drink that champagne, Denise? When are you going to drink that champagne?
Yeah, I'm going to drink it tonight. I might have the whole bottle on my own. No, I've got 2 neighbours, so I'll be having it with them. And I am also doing a live event in Cheltenham a week tomorrow. But clearly not everybody could get to Cheltenham, and so that's going to be similar but different. I've got a different lady asking me questions, so we'll see how that one goes, and hopefully that one's going to be recorded by my friend Dan. So yeah, that will take a different slant. It'll be, but it's been so lovely to just talk with you, Sarah, and I'm so glad that we're now friends. And it was my book that brought us together.
It was. I have been, I've been following you because you're so, so well known in the industry. So, and as I say, your previous books, and yes, and as I say, I was the first person to get the books. I'm very privileged and very lucky. And well done. It's so timely, so important. I'm so pleased it's out in the world.
Okay, thank you. We hadn't actually worked out how we were going to end this, had we? But I think we're done now. Do you?
I think we are. And it's about the new beginning, isn't it, rather than the ending? We'd planned the new beginnings, not the ending.
Yeah, but I've enjoyed doing this with you, and maybe we can have some more conversations about aspects to do with retirement and later life. Oh, there's one more comment just popped up. It's just Eloise and Julia just saying some nice things. So Eloise, I think, is at my university and doing more things as well. So thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. And now I'm going to pop up the end slide. Da-da. So we're still here, but this is overlays that I've just learnt about. So I shall leave that up now just for a few minutes while we end. And thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. And yeah, thanks and goodbye. Thank you, Denise. You're amazing. Book's amazing.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.